Let's start with the team that deserves to be won here. Colorado and Deion Sanders, both eligible. Good for them. Heck of a performance over the weekend. Beat Cincinnati. Shedeur, Travis Hunter and company, they took care of business.
Yeah, they don't control their own destiny as far as it goes with playing in the conference championship game outside of just continuing to win. Obviously, they need some help there, but bye week this week, which means that you can take a rest and watch hopefully some chaos. I mean, right now they're big Texas Tech fans. They're big anybody who's playing BYU fans to get back in that mix. Big a couple other people to be Kansas State fans. They need all that to happen, for them to, not all of it, but some of that to happen for them to get a shot at it. But here they are ranked, making some noise right now. And no longer is it there's, all sizzle and no steak. They've got some of that. Now they still have a ways to grow, but they are, they've got their stars are leading them to wins, and they're playing so much better on defense. So yeah, they're going to be a tough out each and every week.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Hunter's very close to booking his trip to the Heisman ceremony if he hasn't done that already. Shedeur's playing great and probably getting overshadowed a little bit, but he's been fantastic, and that defense is legitimate. And you thought maybe that wasn't the case early on, and that it was more of a flash in the pan, but they've proven now through, nearly 10 weeks of action that this is a legit and improved defense. So there's a lot to like about them. They've got a lot of weapons that teams have to account for and normally don't have the ability to account for all of them. And I think the big thing for opposing offenses is it's really hard to go against a team that's great at man coverage because of what it frees up the rest of your defense to do. And with the corners that they have, and obviously Travis Hunter's right there, they have the ability to go play man-on-man with pretty much anybody and free up others to make plays. So that's a definite strength of theirs is that cornerback play. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about them. They're for real. They're not a national title contender, but they're definitely a Big 12 conference title contender, and they do need a little bit of help, but they've got 4 very winnable games remaining in front of them. Now, you've got to go to Lubbock, but you've got 2 weeks to prepare for that. And I think that with your offense, you feel pretty good about probably being able to throw it around a little bit. But we'll see. That's a couple weeks away, so they'll heal up and try to, I'm sure, block out a lot of that outside noise. But they're sitting pretty, and good to see them in the top 25.
Arizona State had a chance to take a deep breath. They've had a nice run, 5-2. Conference losses at Tech and then also at Cincinnati, but wins against Utah, KU in conference play. They've had a chance to kind of, again, decompress, and now on the road against a team in Oklahoma State that does not want a Big 12 game.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is Sam Leavitt being back and healthy, ready to play after missing a couple of weeks. He's definitely their guy, and to see Jeff Sims these past couple of weeks, you see the drop-off. Now that Sam Leavitt's some Heisman contender, but, again, he's clearly their best option. So to have him back is a definite bump from the last we saw them prior to the bye week when there were questions about his timeline. So now going to Stillwater, you took a trip right before your last game was a trip out to Cincinnati and a close loss where you didn't have Leavitt. Now you're back on the road again, and we'll see if they can't change their fortunes. Going to Stillwater used to be a huge obstacle for a lot of people, but this year at least that's not been the case, and just beating Oklahoma State in general hasn't been. I don't just feel like Arizona State waltzes in and wins this game easily, but I am leaning their way a little bit, although I'm not fully convinced this is just an Arizona State win because I don't think Oklahoma State's that bad compared to them. You know what I mean? So
no, I don't think
this is a toss-up to me this weekend. But Leavitt being back definitely improves their chances.
Yeah, there's not a gigantic gap. What I would say is Leavitt being back improves their chances, and the fact that Cam Scadaboo walks this earth and Oklahoma State cannot stop the run. Mm-hmm. And thank God it's not like, hey, tackle this guy or the ship is going to sink, because the ship would be sinking. They are just not good at that. So I'm leaning Arizona State here, but I don't think that Arizona State has this gigantic talent gap that precludes Oklahoma State from getting off the schneid here. I just think that it's a bad matchup with that particular thing, because, Arizona State doesn't really have to have Sam Leavitt, throw the ball around the yard if Cam Scadaboo just does Cam Scadaboo things.
It's interesting when we bring up a team, someone's lost 5 in a row, lost 4 in a row, because if you blink, you burp, whatever, and you get off kilter, you could lose 4 in a row. And Arizona, coming off 4 consecutive losses, their Big 12 record is also a mess. They're on the road against UCF, and, of course, they're in a funk right now. So Arizona, the Wildcats against UCF. Arizona at 3-5, they need to make a run to become bowl eligible.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much the same thing with them. Is everybody talks about the quarterback and wide receiver and not much else, but they've definitely been riddled with some injuries on defense in particular, and that's hurt them. They had a valiant effort against West Virginia, and McMillan and Fafita, definitely hooked up and had some big moments in that game. McMillan finishes with over, 200 yards on 10 receptions, which is pretty ridiculous. But, yeah, they tried to make it a game there at the end and fell short, and this streak just continues on with no end in sight. Really, I think Brent Brennan's, a guy who's just kind of struggling to find the footing and find the right identity here in this first year. And that's why I was always very hesitant to just go like, yeah, Arizona, they got these guys, like they'll just be what they were last year. They changed coaches and staffs and everything else. But you got your quarterback and wide receiver and some other players, you'll be fine. Like, no, clearly there's a little bit missing from that magic of last year, whatever you want to attribute that to. And it can't just be a two-man show all the time, which is what it often feels like with Arizona football. So, yeah, that rally fell short. But I think, again, another toss-up game this weekend going to UCF. I feel better about UCF, even though they're struggling as well because they are at home, even though the bounce house hasn't been this invincible, fortress either. But I do lean Knights here. And I think Arizona's just a team, just kind of really wasting some star power this year as much as anything else. And that's the big disappointment is you had so many stars coming back, and it's all leading to potentially not even making the postseason, which is just not what anybody would have thought in the preseason at least.
All right, then we have Utah. And they're on a losing streak. Utah has now lost 4 games in a row.
And mercifully on a bye.
Yes,
there's no team that could use one more than Utah right now. They got to figure out what they are on offense. The defense still, pretty effective. But, if you're only going to score 7 points or 14 points in a game, you're not going to win much no matter how good.
By the way, have you seen the note that Isaac Wilson's not a guarantee to start?
Yeah, so there they are again. Look, they had this problem last year too. They've got an A+ defense and a C- at best offense.
Yeah, I mean, they're just not very good, and the Rising injury threw them off initially, but there's clearly bigger problems than just Cam Rising being gone at this stage. Their defense has been pretty good still, but they had an issue here and there, and just offensively they're so terrible. I mean, Isaac Wilson can't stop turning the ball over, and he's just not ready. And, the thing is people want to poo-poo on him, and I get it, but, he's still a true freshman too. Mm-hmm. Were we just going to crumple him up and throw him away because he hasn't performed well as a true freshman? I don't know what his future holds. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but I'm just saying it's way too early to just check out on him. But I do think you need to kind of change some things up because it's not working offensively for them right now. The ominous quote from, Micah Bernard earlier this week, I still don't know if there's been much more light shed on that, at least not that I've seen. But that was definitely a peculiar quote talking about that they know what the issues are, but they didn't want to say. And they, we're all respectful to the media, but clearly there's something behind the scenes that's going on that they're aware of and that they've identified, but they're just not sharing because it's behind closed doors. But what is that? Is that Kyle Whittingham's lost his touch? Is that, hey, Isaac Wilson sucks and he's holding us back? Or is that something else? I don't know, but they've clearly got some issues, and it's much bigger at this stage than just Cam Rising got hurt 7 weeks ago, and that's why we're still struggling. It's no, it's well beyond that at this point, but your staff definitely did you no favors, knowing that was a strong possibility given his history and having the automatic next man up being a true freshman quarterback. So you kind of walked yourself into this situation a little bit, and clearly they're not going to reach their bigger goals this year. That's been out the window for a while, but what can they scrounge together these last few weeks will be interesting, and I think a lot of eyes will be on, changes and just kind of how this sets up for next season as much as anything else.
Arizona and Utah, 4-game losing streaks. Oklahoma State, UCF, 5-game losing streaks. Texas Tech's going to try to shut theirs off. They've lost a couple in a row, and they have the game at Iowa State.